What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on Buy Sell Cars TV. Today we're going to be talking about this Volkswagen Polo. It's a one owner car from new, only done 41,000 miles, and it's had 19 services, all carried out from main dealer. So it's an absolute gem, an absolute rare thing to find at this price point and this age of car. So I thought, let me make a video on this one. It's going to be something a little bit different, not something you see every day in terms of the history and the type of car this is with that low miles. So without further ado, let me give you a walk around of the car, show you the interior and exterior, and then we'll go for a little drive and see how this car is performing after 25 long years of ownership. So let's get cracking. So I'm going to leave the engine running on the car because it's absolutely freezing and I'd like things to be cozy when we get in and go for that drive. So walking through the exterior, you can see we're missing a little tow eye cover there. So maybe in the past it's potentially been towed. 24, 25 years old, you're going to expect these things to probably happen. So going around the rest of the car, looking down the driver's side, the paintwork is looking pretty good in my opinion, especially for a silver car, because a silver car, when it has had paint, it is very, very difficult to make it match. So as it stands on this side, it's actually looking in pretty good condition. Going around the rear of the car, the number plate, look at the state of that. That is an old number plate. Even the font is different to what we see on regular number plates. So that is probably one of the originals, if not from the era of when the car was made. But just standing back and taking a look at the car, it looks really good. And I'll be honest with you, I've had the car parked up now for a couple of months because there is one or two little niggly things which I need to get fixed on this car. Obviously, I have had the car cleaned, etc., but a couple of months has gone by, so it's not going to be looking pristine. There is a little bit of moss and stuff on the car which I need to get sorted, but just giving you an overall off the car, you can see that this part of the body is looking great. The only thing we need to mention is over on the roof by the sunroof. We've got a bit of paint peeling, flaking away. This isn't ideal, but you're going to see these things as cars do get on a bit. We've got a little bit over here as well, but it's not too noticeable, I'm going to say. However, just looking at the car as a whole, I think it is in very, very good condition for its age. But let's check the interior out. So now moving into the interior, and on first impressions, for a car that is from the year 1999, it is in fantastic condition. A little bit of just wear on the rubber, of course, but if we just look underneath the mats, you can see it is very, very clean. I have had the car valeted, so of course it is going to be looking slightly better than how it was initially, but in terms of the actual wear and tear on the seats, you can see there is none. The car genuinely has been a well looked after one owner vehicle. Even the steering wheel, there is minimal wear along that. The only point to note is down here by the electric window switches, we've got a little bit of residue, maybe glue residue from something before. Not really too sure what it is, but the car wash guys struggled to get this off. Maybe I'll see if I have something in the garage which can help remove that. But even looking over here, we can see we've got the original radio for Volkswagen Group. That is a cool thing to see in a car still. Most people would normally get that changed as times move on, but one lady owner, and if I'm taking a guess, probably an elderly person who enjoys having a tape cassette in the car and probably doesn't even use it, to be honest, because if you look at all the buttons over here, they are as new. There is minimal wear to that. So that is a nice cool thing to see on a car of this age. Looking at the mileage as well, so that is 43,296 genuine miles, which we're going to talk about later in the video when we go through the service book, because it is absolutely impeccable to see something like that. But let me show you the rear seats as well. And it's the same situation over here. The rear seats look brand new. Rubber carpets on the floor, again, just got a little bit of, I don't know what you'd say, maybe just the hard water down in the south, leaving some lime scales, but even under the carpets, you can see it is looking very, very clean. Just a little few water droplets from when the mats have been cleaned and not dried properly, so I'll get that dried up. But other than that, that is looking 10 out of 10. So that should give you an idea of the current state and condition of the car, but more so we're going to talk about now why I really bought this car. So we'll go through the important things now, which is the service history and obviously talking about the ownership. So I've got the service papers here and I've got the service book here. The book is fully stamped out, so they've ran out of space, hence why we've got invoices. But let me just turn around the camera and I'll show you all that now. All right, let's start with the service book then. So let's count through the stamps we've got. So we've got the first one carried out in 2001 and 979 miles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we've got 14 services in the book, all carried out at main dealer, and this was up until 2013 and 31,000 miles. Now obviously at this point the book has ran out, and after the book has been filled out just to give you an idea, because I don't want to go through all the paperwork here, as it has got the lady personal details on there with her address, but we have got about another 7 or 8 services in here. So in total, I had a flick through, there's 20 records of this car being done at main dealer, and there is a receipt in here to show the clutch has been changed only a couple of thousand miles ago. So that is a massive plus point to see from main dealer. So now that gives you a real good idea of why I went for this specific car, because when you've got history like that on something of this age, you'd like to think that this car is going to drive impeccable. And there is a little bit of a story actually on this car, because I didn't mean to buy it. It sort of happened as an accident, and I got it for a good price because, well, let's go for a drive and it'll make sense when I talk about it. So let me set the cameras up and let's go see how this Polo is driving. So let's talk about the reasons of how this car came about, and obviously some of the things of why it stood out to me. The first point I'm going to say is I didn't plan on buying this car. This was a very last minute thing, and it actually was a little bit of a mistake, but a lucky mistake, if that makes sense. Now, the car was coming through the no reserve section. Obviously I was looking at other stuff which I was bidding on. I saw this car pop up, and I'd be honest, I didn't have a lot of time, so I just had a quick flick through. I saw it was a one owner car, 19 services, 19 main dealer, so I thought the car's going to be pretty good to some extent, right? Because I only had a very, very short time to base my decision, I quickly looked through the images just to make sure that there isn't any major damage on the car, because that's something, you know, if you're seeing a car go for cheap, it can be because the bodywork's really poor. So I saw the car being a one owner, 19 services, all from main dealer. Obviously turns out it has 20 services, and it was going for a good price. So I quickly just bidded on it. You know, yes, it's not always the right thing to do. You should always do your homework and check things. But there are times where if a car is cheap enough, you can take a little bit of a risk on it. And like I say, one owner with that history, I thought it would be a good car. Now, after I won the car, I read through the description properly, and I saw there was 2 little issues on there. So one was to say there was a fault with the brakes, and the other one said clutch/gearbox issue. And at that moment in time, I was like, oh, for God's sake, like, not end of the world, right? But it's massively going to affect your margin, because when you're selling cheap cars, it's not like you have a crazy amount of, you know, profit in a car. Your margins are good in the terms of percentages, but you're dealing in smaller numbers, so you have to look at all those factors, right? So saw it had those issues, and I was like, oh, I can't even go pick up the car now. So it was over in Paddock Wood. Now normally I'll just jump on the train and go pick up the car, but I can't go all that way if the car's got a problem with the brakes or gearbox. It's not going to be safe to drive. Long story short, paid about 180 quid to get the car delivered from BCA straight to my mechanics. Now when it arrived at my mechanics, they called me to say, oh, is this your car? Because it came so quickly they weren't even aware. And I said to them, oh yeah, it's got some faulty brakes or the gearbox, blah blah blah. And then my mechanic goes to me, no, the lady, she drove it in like it's fine. And I was like, what do you mean it's fine? It shouldn't have any brakes, and it shouldn't really have, and it should have a clutch gearbox issue. He goes, no, she took it off the truck, it was absolutely fine, she drove it in. So I was like, all right, cool, let me just come down there, let me see what the situation is with the car, I'll take it for a drive and get a feel for it. So I went to the mechanics, got the keys, took the car for a little spin up the road, and it was absolutely fine. I couldn't believe it. Nothing wrong with the gearbox, nothing wrong with the brakes at all. I genuinely don't know why it said that on the report, but hey ho, it obviously benefited me. I got a car for cheap and it worked in my favour. As much as there are times with BCA or any other auction houses where you buy a car and it's not described as expected and it's got a problem, well, in this instance, it was described faulty and it wasn't faulty, which meant I got the car for cheap because whoever was bidding on it probably knew that it had issues, whereas me, I was bidding on it without reading that part of the description. So I got a bit lucky and it worked in my favour. Happy days for me. Now let's talk about a couple of little problems with the car. So I had to get it MOT'd because it didn't have an MOT on there. So that, you know, no big issue. I looked at the previous advisories, etc., and the car was a clean car, so I wasn't that concerned, and it went through straight away. I actually got it MOT'd a couple of months ago, and it's just been sat around because there's a couple of little niggly issues on the car which I need to get sorted. But a car like this isn't really going to change in price. I can't see it depreciating or losing money, so it's one of those things that got just put on the back bench at the moment, but I'm now looking to get everything sorted. So a couple of those issues which I had were a window regulator, and that itself was a bit of a pain. Couldn't source the part that we needed for the electric window regulator because we needed the motor. Being a 3-door, for whatever reason, it was just harder to find. So I ended up having to just get it on eBay for about £120, which is quite a bit of money, to be honest, for a window regulator. And it took me the best part of a couple of weeks to source it because at that moment, no one had any of these things in stock. So I even contemplated just buying another Polo from the auction, you know, like a bad car that's, you know, going to be scrapped, just to use it for parts, because I thought it might be a good thing to have a spare car. I thought I might even save a little bit of money by doing that, but then it's just a hassle of getting another car, etc. So I thought, forget that, put it on the back burner, let's just source the part whenever we can. So I managed to find the window regulator, that problem is done. Whilst the car was getting fixed, I mentioned to my mechanic there's another issue with the fuel gauge. So the fuel gauge, as I'll show you, is just absolutely dead. When you start the car, it shakes a little bit, but there is nothing going on to tell me that there is any fuel in the car. I'm sure it probably has got fuel in it. I've topped it up anyway. I put like 15, 20 quid and reset the trip computer, so I know I'm safe and I've got a bit of fuel in there. The mechanic did have a little look at it, but he suggested that I buy a new instrument cluster, and what they can do is from the other cluster is just remove that part off where the fuel reading is, put it onto this one, and then put everything back in. So I don't need to replace any of the clocks, you know, readjust the mileage, etc. I can just swap that one section from the other cluster and put it back on this one. So that's where we stand at the moment with this car. That is the issue in hand. It is a bit of a problem because I've had it before where I've sold cars with fuel gauge issues, and I just priced them really cheap in that respect, because if someone's willing to buy it, it's up to them. They're happy with it. It's priced accordingly, rather than me spend a lot of time trying to rectify something. If someone is aware and is happy with something, that's okay. But it's if you don't tell them, then morally it's not the right thing to do. But in this case, 43,000 mile Volkswagen Polo, one owner, 20 main dealer services. This is basically a classic. It's a borderline classic. And yes, there are a little bit of TLC the bodywork needs, but as a whole, it's not something you see every day. The mileage, the service history, it's super, super tremendous to see that on a car like this. It just shows it's a well looked after example of a car. So price wise, where do I see this in the market? It is a bit of a tricky one to think about because, you know, super low mileage, but there aren't many of these Polos on the road anymore because a lot of them have probably just been scrapped or whatever. So price wise, I'm gonna say it's got to be at least around £2,000. Potentially a little bit more, and the reason I say that is because we're tapping into a couple of markets with this car. So being a low mileage car anyway, it's going to attract a lot of buyers. You're going to still attract, you know, first time buyers who are looking to get a cheap car. That's a very good example because of its history. But then you can also be tapping into the classic car market. Now I know that's a bit far-fetched to some extent because this isn't, you know, a sporty GTI variant or anything along those lines. However, it is a good example of a Volkswagen Polo from 1999. And if you think about it, a car which is 24 years old, there'll be a lot of people now who, you know, maybe, you know, in their peak of their lives earning a bit of money. And this could have potentially been their first car. So if someone wanted to have a second car, you know, just a little run around, they may see this as, you know, bringing back memories from when they were young, that nostalgic feeling. So I do feel you're also going to be tapping into that market as well. But who knows, these types of cars, low mileage and small cars, do sell very, very quickly. But I guess it's a bonus to see that we can be tapping into another market as well. And in all honesty, this car drives fantastic. For something which is this old, it drives so nice. The clutch is good, obviously being replaced. The suspension, there are no creaks, no rattles. I genuinely do not feel like I'm driving a car of this age. So it just goes to show the build quality of these cars. And if they've been serviced regularly, maintained properly, driven carefully, they're gonna last. So on that note, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I know it's been a little bit different in the sense of it's more of an older car, not your typical collecting something from the auction, but still was an auction car, still was something which needed a bit of prep to get it ready, and it's something different to show you. You can buy old cars, add value to them, and potentially make a profit when this car does sell. So let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks or months once this car gets advertised on the market. Got to get that fuel gauge sorted, but it will be done in due time, and then we can get the car advertised for, I'm going to say around the £2,000 mark, but let's see what happens as things go on. So on that note, thank you so much again for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Take care, guys.